What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's been a couple of days since I've worked on the car, and I think it started to become a cycle, a repeat of cycle of me doing something and then taking a couple of days off. Don't get me wrong, it's nice to get a couple of days off. Today I can finally do some work to the car because I got a package finally from Submit Racing. Just got back home a little while ago, got to the welding store right on time before they closed, and they had one tank left of argon to replace the 250 that I've been out for quite some time. Now you know what that means. We have a full tank of argon, half a tank of MIG gas. We can finally bring some cars here to do some projects, but not today. Today we're focused on this car. I'll show you guys what I have in the package right here, and I've been waiting for this for a little while so we can button up the CRX a little bit more so I can drive it without having issues. Normally Submit Racing shipping is 1 day to me, but because of this whole COVID thing, it's not 1 day anymore. It's 2 days, if not, you know, shipped directly from their warehouse, which is in Nevada. It takes longer. This guy right here, the gas tank, took like a whole week because it wasn't shipped from their warehouse. So right here we have T3 flange turbo heat shield. This is a turbo blanket, and we have the DEI titanium wrap to wrap up the downpipe a little bit. I'm sure you guys heard me mention before that I've been having like running hot issues, but granted, the days that were running hot, the CRX, was days that I drove where it was like 102 degrees, 100 degrees out, and the temperature would rise every time I would make a pull. But I also feel like my tune had something to do with it because my voltage issue is still persisting. 14 volts at the alternator, lights on, fan on, and then it'll read 12.9 at the battery. Now it's weird because all of this has been in the car for 5 years. Never had an issue until like when I did the SFI pulley. But I removed all that. We still have the same issues, but aside from, you know, the voltage issue, which I am going to try to sort out today, maybe, just maybe, I want to at least install the turbo blanket, the heat wrap, and figure out something with passages to allow airflow to my radiator. Heat shield products, this seems to have a lot of good reviews, and they are price comparable to the PTP. I picked this one up off Submit Racing because I wanted to get it here sooner, which actually took a little longer, but we got it now. This is a turbo blanket. Where this goes is on the exhaust housing on your turbo, which is literally the hottest part of the turbo, and they come with their little bungee spring strap, whatever you want to call this right here, to secure this into place. So let me show you guys a quick little example on how this is supposed to fit on your exhaust housing. This is a turbo. This is the compressor side. This is supposed to push all the air into your intake manifold through the charge pipe, through the intercooler, if you're running an intercooler, to, you know, induce air. And this is the exhaust side where the turbo manifold is typically connected to, and you know, the air goes in here, spins that, spins this, draws cold air, hot air comes out this way. This guy gets super hot. So what the turbo blanket does is it's supposed to retain the heat from expanding off the turbo housing itself and dispersing it through the engine bay, making everything else hot. This is supposed to contain the heat in the blanket. I mean, this is still going to be warm, but not going to be as hot. It claims that this and a few other companies reduces heat to like maybe 50-60% decrease in the engine bay. And because I have the overheating issues and stuff like that with my car, not really an overheating issue, it just gets too hot, I figured it'd be a good time to put one of these turbo blankets on because I've never ran this before. It even says it right here on the box. Reduces under hood temp up to 50%. Ooh, it smells like straight up E85 in here. Goddamn. So another reason why I got the argon tank right there, I don't know if I mentioned it in another video, but my dump tube is cracked.
Now, I possibly know why it cracked. One, because it's not back purged, and two, it's such a weird angle, so I feel like that angle is getting a lot of like pressure from, you know, all the fumes coming out of the wastegate and cracks. I did something very similar to this on another manifold a long time ago, and it cracked the same way right on the weld. So I got some gas so I can repair that before I wrap that dump tube. But first, again, let's take off the bumper real quick. And I wish I had quick latches because it'll come off in literally like 5 seconds. But because I don't, and I got to remove a bunch of bolts. Oof! Now, we got to take off the intercooler again to give us much more space to work with the turbo itself. So I got to take off my downpipe because I forgot that I can't move the radiator because the turbo's ball bearing and we have a water line right here at the bottom. Probably still gonna drain the coolant a little bit later because I do, like I said, I still want to make the shroud and I don't have material. But I mean, if I don't really mind, I can use a thicker. This is like 0125 thickness you can use for like intercoolers and stuff, or this is the one I use for catch cans. But if I don't mind, I can probably just use that to make a shroud, but I want to take care of the wrap first. So taking off my downpipe, I gotta disconnect my wideband. 3-inch downpipe, not too bad. I mean, the car is a lot higher than it used to be, but still tapping a little bit here. But yeah, check out the welds on here, not too shabby, right? I'm just realizing now that I missed a spot right there. It's weird. But when I put the heat wrap on, we're not going to see any of these guys anymore, which is okay because I know I welded this and I'm pretty proud of this downpipe, or at least this top half of a downpipe. So I just cleaned and welded that a little gap that I had right there, and now we can wrap the downpipe. All I did was I sprayed a whole bunch of acetone on here. You can see the rag is pretty dirty, and I cleaned off all of the residuals and, you know, whatever I left behind before the wrap. The cool thing about this wrap that I'm using, it is from DEI. I mean, you can get this from O'Reilly's. I don't think you can get the titanium version, which is what I have right here. It says on YouTube that the titanium version is a softer material and you don't have to wet it like the fiberglass version. The fiberglass version turns white. I had the black wrap before and it turned white over time, and then it becomes super brittle and falls apart. This is titanium and it doesn't change color. Technically it's like a lava, kind of like this guy right here. And I'm only going to be wrapping from the curve around the wideband to about here. I don't have to go underneath the car because the wind drag is gonna, you know, drag the heat away from the engine. And I'm only gonna focus on this half. So I looked up on YouTube on how to install DEI heat wrap, and it's like the first or second video, and it's pretty simple as far as the dude is explaining it. You don't have to wet this one. What he did was he was measuring how many like revolution it's going to take to go from point A to point B, and I think he did a 1/4 inch overlay. I'm probably going to do a 1/2 inch overlay. I didn't realize this didn't come with the straps, the metal strap that's supposed to hold this onto the pipe. I'm just going to use worm clamps. I've used worm clamps on heat wraps before without issues, so I had those lying around. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to fold this end at 45 degrees to lock in these fray pieces. Right, start it off wherever it is that I want to start it off at. Start my first loop, getting as tight as possible. I don't know if I'm following the instructions correctly. This halfway overlay actually took up more material, and I undercut the amount that I needed because we didn't even make it to the 90. way underestimated. But on the bright side, I can use this on the dump tube and I'll just cut more for the downpipe. Bam! That is the downpipe wrap with DEI titanium heat wrap. I got it all the way at the curve, which typically, the motor sits about right there, and all of the wind is going to drag whatever heat is going to be generated here underneath the car. I'm only concerned about right here, like I said, because the radiator sits right here, so this is pretty much ready to go back in. Right here, I made sure that the worm clamp and the V-band doesn't get in the way of clamping this guy to the turbo, so this is ready to go. So right now I'm going to take off the dump tube, I'm going to weld that crack and wrap it up. Yeah, I mean, I could have just welded right through this, but I decided to ghetto bevel it. But I didn't drill any holes. Let's get this repaired. Just gonna trim these worm clamps a little bit, and let's get this and that reinstalled in the car. I slapped the downpipe on just to, make sure the V-band is going to work around the turbo blanket, and I did test fit it. It seems like it may work, so right now I am going to permanently install this into place. The only thing that is really tight is the water line in the front and the water line that's in the back, but I think we can make this work. So I'm gonna go ahead and just fadangle. Somebody typed the word out, fadango, in the last comment section. Fadango, that word just came out of nowhere, to tell the truth, but I'm gonna go ahead and just shimmy this in here real quick and see if I can get this all nicely secured. This is not supposed to go under, it's supposed to go over. My hand's too big for this. Big hands matter. Yeah, that's pretty snugged on there. That's pretty good. Alright, well, that's the turbo blanket. Not shabby. Nice and snugged. Hopefully this is going to reduce some engine bay temps. Now we can put the dump tube on. Damn, this thing took a little time to put on. This right here was binding with the spring. This guy was binding with the blanket. But after shimming it around a few times, I was able to get the clamp on, get this guy positioned, fully tightened down. Downpipe is fully tightened down. Blanket is fully secured into place. It's not going anywhere. And I think we're going to continue tomorrow, because tomorrow I do feel like I want to just use the thicker material to make a shroud. And I don't want to put all the intercooler stuff in the way just yet, because, obviously easy access. So tomorrow I'm probably going to drain all of the coolant, remove this line, the hoses, and make a shroud for the fan where it currently sits on the radiator. So with that being said, I'm going to clean all this stuff right now, guys, and we'll continue tomorrow. Now, if you guys have been on the channel for a little while, you guys know I will say every now and then I'm not crazy OCD, but I'm just a smidge. And yesterday I was sitting right here on the floor looking at this, how it's not like the same on both sides. You see how this one's lower, this one's higher. It bothers me, it really does. But I can't do anything about this because of the V-band clamp, and this one, I mean, if I move it over like on this side of the feed, it'll give it that same look, you know what I mean? But all I gotta do is just put everything back together so I don't see it no more, so it doesn't bother me. Right now, that's not my focus. This is all situated. Right now, I think what I'm gonna do is, I talked to my buddy Kel. He has like a little CNC router, and he's made shrouds and stuff before. So before I get to trying to make my own custom one, because cutting aluminum without the right tools is really hard, he said to make measurements of like how I want my shroud to be, and then he has, I believe it's 0100 thick aluminum. I have 0125, I have 125, and it's a little bit thicker, but he said make it out of cardboard, and then we'll take it to him. I believe he said he could fit an 18 by 18 in his router like table, and see if he can cut me out a perfect circle and the ends that I need to fold it to make the shroud for my radiator. So right now, first thing, I'm gonna go ahead and just drain the coolant. So my fan is a 13-inch. I bought this five years ago, because 5 years ago I bought this car as a shell, and I bought this in the radiator 5 years ago, and I've never ran a shroud. Actually, I've never ran a shroud in general, like in any of my setup. And this fan is a 13-inch fan. You can see it almost covers the whole damn like core, literally just a smidge there, a little bit here, and this whole side. Now the reason why this is offset is because the downpipe sits somewhere here. So if I centered it, it would definitely hit the downpipe. So it's off-centered to the passenger side. Before I get too far in this, I didn't know how I was going to approach this, so I just took some measurements. And cardboard, you know what I'm saying, it's easy to cut, easy to form, just to see what will work and what won't. So right now this fan, like I said, is huge, right? The core itself is 14-inch in width and 13.5-inch in height. Now this is a freaking 13-inch fan, so you can see the end of the fan, or the top of the fan, and the end of the fan is literally core to core, right? And core to core, I made, you know, I actually took this fan, put it on here, traced it out, and then I measured from the edge to the fin on the inside to kind of get this dotted hole where, you know, the circle cutout will be at. And it gives me enough lip in between to bolt the fan to the shroud. So because this is lip to lip and this is super offsetted to the passenger side, where this is going to be riding on this aluminum cover, I pretty much made it to the edge, and there's a 1/4 inch here, there, and there, and that is typically supposed to be folded over to give me that little gap. So the fan's going to sit on top of the shroud, something like that. It's going to give it that gap. And it's supposed to be folded down. I don't know how I'm going to fold that because, one, I don't have a brake, and two, it's aluminum and it's only a 1/4 inch, you know, being folded. So that's going to be a little hard to do. But if Kel can do this for me, then he has a brake at his house that he can do. Right now I'm trying to figure out how I am going to make this end right here. So from the end of this guy, I'm going to measure, so that way we know how far we got to go. And I think what I'm going to do is, instead of making it boxed, right, you know, the shroud, and then it boxed down, I'm going to triangulate this so it's like slanted, so that way it's not hitting the downpipe if it was to be box shaped. So this is the general idea of how the shroud should be looking. Now this edge doesn't necessarily need to be a 1/4 inch. It could be 1/2 inch just to give it more space, but I also got to count that this guy right here may interfere. So this goes on like that. You can see it already kind of interferes right there, but I'm not worried about it. I can always cut a little arch just to clear the lower water neck, but goes on like that. You know, gives it that nice gap right there to draw air from each corner of the core. The fan goes on like so. It's probably going to be mounted to the shroud, and then the shroud is going to have its own tab to mount to the radiator. And this is the end that I'm talking about, where it's like triangulated, right? So instead of being boxed in like this guy right here in the corner, it's triangulated just to give me a little more clearance to the downpipe. You see where I'm getting at? So right now, I'm not sure if I'm gonna cut this myself or I'm gonna head to Kel's, but I'm gonna text him real quick, see what he thinks, what he says, and if we can do it today, we'll pick up there. If not, I'll probably have pieces cut out already. Alright guys, so after a little while, we're getting close to making this DIY shroud. So right now, I slit the ends where I'm folding them. I cut it with the grinder about halfway down so I can fold it with ease. Now if you don't heat it up, you do end up cracking it, and then, you know, when you bend it too much, you end up losing the side, which is right there on the floor. So right now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna tack these corners just so that it doesn't fall off, and then I'm gonna bend this side right here, and then I'm gonna tack that as well too, and then I'm gonna fit that one back up,
tack that in place and keep massaging it until I get it to where I need to be. I'm leaving the center on here just to give it a little structural integrity, so that way when I weld it, it doesn't warp. And then once everything is all formed how I want it to be and how it fits on the radiator to my likings, I'll cut the center out and then shave it down to get it all nice and smooth, so it doesn't look like it has a bunch of teeth on there. So I'm gonna go ahead and tack this up real quick, and then if it looks good, we'll fully weld it up. So guys, I got this all tacked up and, you know, conformed to how I meant this to, you know, be shaped into. Burnt this end a little bit right there, not a big deal, but all the edges are folded, like I said, tacked into place, and I'm just quickly test fitting it on here. I mean, for being all hand cut and literally, you know, having no clue what I was doing here, it seems to fit pretty good. So the only thing is I'm gonna have to round this edge off once I weld it, so that way we can bring this end down a little bit, right? So that way it'll cover up these fins right here on the bottom. And then yeah, I mean, it's looking good. It's definitely, hopefully when I bring this down, this right here will sit in the core to cover up that gap. I mean, if we have a gap, I can just put foam in between, not a big deal. And then yeah, I mean, once I weld everything up, we can cut the circle out and then install our fan. What had happened was, I decided I wanted to see if I was able to make this shroud myself. And I wanted to see how fast I could make this shroud. Now, this isn't the prettiest, but function over form at this point. So yesterday, I cut out the center section of the shroud right here. I took a grinder, I cut off every attaching edge that, you know, was still holding this piece to the shroud itself. And then I took a flap disc, which took some time because my flap disc was kind of worn down, a 60 grit, and I took a flap disc to shape the cutout to make it nice and smooth. And then I took red Scotch-Brite and kind of just scuffed it up because, you know, there was a lot of scratches and stuff on it. So I welded up some tabs, and right now it is secured to the radiator. I still got to take it off to put some foam in there to kind of, you know, avoid vibration cutting into the radiator itself. But check it out. This is my DIY handmade shroud for my Skunk 2 EF specific radiator for a 13-inch fan. So you guys can see the whole edge, everything is almost flush. I'm probably gonna put some foam right there to kind of, you know, fill in that gap. But right here it's slanted to clear the downpipe, and almost flush on this side as well. Got 4 tabs and enough space for the bottom hose right there. Alright guys, so this right here is a riv nut, and there's a tool that you can use to install these riv nuts. And I don't have the tool, but I'll show you how I do it. So this riv nut right here goes into whatever hole that you're trying to put a riv nut in, and what it does is it compresses this sleeve. You can see this little spline on there. This spline is supposed to catch onto whatever it is that you're putting it into. If this is compressed like all the way, it should not move. So because I don't have the correct tool for the job, I'm going to use a radiator stay for an EF. I'm using just the opening right here, right? You can see that. So because these holes are smaller, I was going to put a bolt of nuts, but I don't want the nut to fall out from the backside, you know, after vibration and then get caught in the fan. So I'm going to drill these holes out a little bit to accept the riv nut. Just like that, right? Now the trick is you get a long 10 mil bolt, because this is threaded for a 10 mil, like this one right here for an example. You put the riv nut on the opposite end right there, and then you thread the 10 mil into it. So the radiator stay or anything flat is supposed to go in between, like so. Snug it, put it into the hole, and then take a 10 mil in this case, and you zap it until it stops. what it does is it compresses the midsection of that riv nut, so those little splines would grab on or catch on to the material to keep it from spinning. So you don't have to make it ultra tight. Back it out, and now you have a riv nut with a threaded hole for you to bolt down whatever it is that you need to bolt onto. Man, this is awesome. So this zip tie right here zips into the T-bar to pull the radiator back a little bit, but we have the radiator in place with the fan, and you can see we got plenty of clearance in between the hose, the shift mechanism down here, and the downpipe. You can see the downpipe, we have a little gap right there, and the dump tube a little bit after I pull the radiator back. You can see that gap right there. Got the bottom AN hooked up for the turbo, got the lower radiator hose hooked up over there. Now we can put the T-bar back in, and then we can do intercooler, bumper, all that good jazz, and then we can bleed the cooling system out. Tell you guys one thing, the engine bay has cooled down a lot with the heat wrap and the turbo blanket. Like, I don't feel the heat here anymore at all, as well as over here. I don't feel any heat other than the ram horn. And we are at 183 right now. The fan is not on yet. I'm gonna let it get to 190 and I'm gonna kick the fan on. But it's crazy. It's crazy to know that all the heat that used to be here, it's not here anymore. So at 190, I'll kick the fan on and see how fast it cools it down. 192, 194. Fan on. See how quickly it drops. That's crazy. That is crazy. And it is still going. Wow, it might even get down to 160-ish. That's crazy. That's crazy. The cooling system seems to be situated. I've had this overheating issue every time I made a pool and stuff like that. Driving in the hotter weather, it's much cooler now since the heat wave, so obviously that played a big role to why the car was overheating more before. But I did a lap around the block. I did a first, second going that way, and then I did a first gear launch right here in front of the house, and the temperature only got to 177. Unfortunately, I broke another axle right here, same side, and it's literally just limp dicking at the bottom. Look at it, chilling. The other half of the cup is right there in the diff. So now that I've situated the cooling system, I have an axle problem with the new rebuilt Vistas coupler. But honestly, I'm not even mad at it. I think I'm gonna get the other cup, which is still on the diff right there somewhere. and rebuild it again, because I have all the bearings. Rebuild it again, and then I'm just gonna take it easy. I'm probably not gonna do any more digs or any front of the house launches until we can figure out an actual solution. So I am gonna end the video right here, guys. Turbo blanket heat wrap does work. It does help, and I've driven this car for so many years now. I right off the bat felt the difference with the heat being contained with those stuff installed. So if you guys enjoyed today's progress, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and if you guys want to see what's coming up next here on the channel, me and this fool truck and trailer, we're gonna go grab some. So be sure to hit the subscribe button. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.